Okay, so it being 4:03. We'll call to order the regular meeting of the West Basin Engineering Operations Committee and a special meeting of the West Basin Board of Directors. And with that, if we can have a determination of quorum.
Happy to do that. Director Harold Williams. Here. Chairman Desi Alvarez.
Here.
Director Don Deere.
Here.
Director Gloria Gray.
Here.
And Director Scott Houston. Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Okay. Do we have any public comments that have been submitted or pending?
Mr. Chairman, we have not received any requests for public comment, though this meeting is being held both virtually and in person. If there are any attendees that are attending virtually that would like to make public comment, please indicate so by raising your virtual hand. And Mr. Chairman, I do not see any requests.
Okay, any presentations today?
Staff has no presentation.
And we do not have an action calendar today, so we will move on to the information calendar. The first item is the DCS replacement project. Over is it our general manager, would you like to introduce that?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And on the eve of March Madness, our engineering and operations team has brought their A game for these presentations. As you mentioned, the first is item 6A, the DCS replacement project and the owner agent RFP. And for this presentation, we have John Benner, our engineer 2.
Thanks, EJ. Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the board. I'm here today to present information item 6A on the distributed control system replacement project. This item begins on packet page 3, but we'll be starting today with the presentation on page 10. In this information item today, we'll be discussing staff's intention to acquire an owner's agent, why it's necessary, and what their scope of work will entail. Next slide, please. So first, I'd like to just give this brief recap of our DCS system. As I mentioned last month in the project review, our distributed control system is effectively both the brain and nervous system of our recycled water production system. It controls every aspect of production, from the valves that allow the influent from Hyperion to the pumps that send the treated water to our customers. Here at West Basin, we've pretty much split our system into our DCS system, with the backbone providing the overall control and system management, and process controls such as PLCs managing the individual components in the field. In terms of actual components, the split between process controls and backbone systems is roughly 60-40, although the backbone systems carry a much greater risk. Next one. As I mentioned last month, approximately 2/3 of all of our hardware is obsolete. That means no longer manufactured, supported, and there's only limited technical support available in the market, if any. This is a problem when around 30% of that obsolete hardware has the potential to cause a full site shutdown. And seeing as there are very few replacement parts on the market, a shutdown could last months. In the last 6 months, we've experienced 4 major DCS-related issues that have impacted production, and these issues appear to be occurring more and more frequently. We're also having issues integrating new systems, such as the JNM Phase 2 project, and these outdated systems present a significant cybersecurity risk, a threat which is unfortunately becoming more and more common in our industry. There's also a number of ancillary issues, but the bottom line is that our control systems obsolete, regularly failing, and it seems to be getting worse day by day. Therefore, staff is undertaking this project to replace the backbone system in its entirety, which we estimate will offset approximately 80% of our current risk for around 1/3 of the cost of full system replacement. Next slide, please. As I presented last month, staff is recommending a progressive design build approach. This approach will allow us to assess the available control systems on the market, select the system that will serve the district for decades to come, and install the system all within 2 years, whilst providing a single point of contact throughout to manage both the design and installation. It's estimated that this project will cost up to $10 million and take up to 18 months. One of the biggest risks with a design task. Next slide, please. This slide details the proposed scope of work for the design builder. So a detailed scope of work will be produced by district staff over the next couple of months and reviewed and finalised by the owner's agent once on board. The design builder's role will be to develop, install and commission a new backbone control system across all treatment sites to replace our current distributed control system. The proposed scope of work would include sitting down with district staff and our contract operator to establish our necessary requirements for new. The district and our owner's agent will make a final selection of which system to move forwards with, and then the design builder will be able to continue the design until they're ready to provide a guaranteed maximum price proposal to finish the design, install the system, and then commission it. The district and our owner's agent will negotiate this guaranteed maximum price with the design builder, and if we come to an agreement, the project will move into the construction phase, and the design builder will install and commission the system for below the guaranteed maximum price. In addition, it will be within the design builder's scope to create a control system master plan for the district based around the selected system. Its operation and maintenance requirements, recommendations for future upgrades, and control system specifications for use in future projects to ensure we do not experience similar issues that we're seeing in our current projects. We anticipate onboarding this design builder in September of this year and the project finishing in spring 2026. The estimated cost is between $6 and $10 million. The design builder will provide a cost for the design phase of the project in the proposal, but the final guaranteed maximum price to install and commission the system will not be established until after we select the system. At around the 60% design stage, staff anticipates this will occur around this time next year. Next slide, please. Onto the penultimate slide, project finances. This is similar to last month, but as of January 1st, we spent a total of $814,831 on this project. That's since the project's inception in 2019. Just over half of that total was spent on the comprehensive audit. In total, we're looking at a potential project expenditure of up to $22 million over the next 10 years as we update our entire control system through to lead. This initial backbone refurbishment staff are proposing today will comprise between a third and a half of that total at an estimated cost of between $6 and $10 million over the next 2 years. The backbone refurbishment aims to resolve approximately 80% of our systems issues, leaving us to slowly replace the remaining systems as and when necessary over the next decade. We have secured $822,743 refinery funding to date. However, if the total project cost increases to around that $22 million, we would be able to request further refinery funding under our current agreements of up to $3.6 million. These additional funds will be requested as the project costs become more concrete over the next few months. In terms of this current fiscal year, we had allocated $1,200,786. However, as of January 1st, we've only spent around $37,000, all of which has been on staff labour. We intend to use some of that remaining budget to onboard the owner's agent and also to purchase stopgap equipment to try and minimise risks over the next year. But most of the remaining $1.2 million will not be spent before July. Next slide, please. And on to the last slide, our next steps. Staff intends to procure and onboard an owner's agent as soon as possible to assist with the procurement of design builder. We hope to have the owner's agent on board by the end of next quarter, with the design builder on board by the end of quarter 3. Through the end of the year and into early next year, we intend to evaluate and select our preferred system, and then, if the guaranteed maximum price negotiations go well, install that system throughout the rest of 2025 with an intended project completion in early 2026. Next slide. With that, my presentation is over. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Excuse me. Director Williams, any questions?
Yeah, thank you. Yes. This is a heavy duty project, right? So who will, from our agency, is going to be the program, for lack of a better term, program manager of the whole thing? So, you know, your project manager you have, right? Who's going to be the project manager? And who's going to be the manager over the project manager?
We're going to, Dr. Williams and Directors, we're going to have an all hands on deck approach for this particular project, because It's going to be led by engineering, and it's going to be led by John here, who has taken the project over for a while now. So he's going to act as a project manager, but he's going to be supported by me and others in the engineering department, as well as several folks from the operations department as well. We're really hoping to have the legal expertise and the technical expertise that John talked about throughout the process, and we're confident with the onboarding of the owner's agent, we're going to be able to have the right people see this project through. So program manager wise, it's going to be me and others in West Basin's leadership. John will act as project manager.
Okay, so who's gonna be watching him?
I'll be watching.
Thank you. That's all I have for now.
Okay. Any other board member have questions? Director Leader?
It sounds like the current situation is pretty dangerous to us. Things are liable to fall apart real fast. And what alternatives do we have to counteract anything that might happen? I mean, I guess there are a lot of different things that could happen. Are you kind of ready for any emergency or what?
Yeah, in the last few years, we've seen DCS failures at a rough rate of about once every 6 months a year. In the last 6 months, we've seen 5. So they're escalating quite significantly. And the issue we have is that there's a very limited number of spare components on the market. So as we've had failures, we've had to procure spare components from the market, and obviously that supply has dwindled. So we're planning on using some of the remaining funds for this year, this fiscal year, to procure as many spare components as we can to tide us over for the next year, 18 months, while we complete the design and installation of the new system. So that's our plan, is effectively stockpiling spares and we're reaching out to several third-party vendors as well to see who has expertise in these kind of more obsolete systems that we might be able to deal with.
Good, thank you.
And just to expand on that, there, here, just a couple of examples. The incident we had last month at Torrance satellite plant, where several cards were DCS cards burned, and trying to kind of find replacements. We had to go to our customer, the refinery, found some in Ohio and shipped them over. We found some in Florida and shipped them over. Some of these parts are just very hard to find. Similar type of situation with our Carson plant recently, where we ultimately found some controllers that worked, but it was a struggle to find them. So we did an audit several years back. We're past that moment where we do an assessment and start planning on how to do it. As John mentioned, now we're seeing these systems go down more and more often, and we anticipate that will continue to happen moving forward.
Any other questions? Director Gray, do you have any questions?
No, thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Ultimately, your numbers here are correct. We're spending about $22 million a
There's,
So that's a significant expenditure. We may be looking at significant changes in our overall operations. So in developing on this, are we gonna have off-ramps available, or how are we gonna handle that potential?
correct. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, so the $22 million encompasses both the backbone replacement of around $11 million and the replacement of the process equipment. Due to the potential changes we have, we're prioritizing the backbone replacement, which will be necessary pretty much no matter what systems we put in, which systems we take offline, even if we potentially take treatment plants and reduce size. We will need those backbone systems, the networks, the servers, the controllers. In terms of process equipment, the actual PLCs that control individual MF trains, individual valves, we're not replacing those as part of this first phase. The aim is to replace the backbone first, and then in a couple of years' time, once the backbone is replaced, look to see which processes we're definitely keeping, which processes we might be sunsetting and only replace the process equipment for processes that we're planning on keeping or using going forwards. So while it is a potential up to 22 million, depending on which direction, it's unlikely we'll get to a full 22 million. It will be kind of as and when we need to replace components after the backbone is done.
John, can you touch on the contractual off-ramp?
Oh, yes, yeah. So
as well.
part of the progressive design build as well, it's different to a standard design build contract where we undertake the design with the design build entity, and at a point where they believe they can provide a guaranteed maximum price for the rest of the installation, the rest of the design. We're anticipating that'll be around the 60% design stage. We then sit down and have a negotiation. If we believe that the costs to complete the project are exorbitant, or we might be able to get lower costs elsewhere, we can end the project there, have an off-ramp at that 60% stage at the end of phase one, and effectively take the design work that's been done and then decide how we want to proceed with the remaining rest of the project. We can either put it back out to bid or decide to end the project there. But we have an option to stop at the end of phase one, which we estimate to be around 60% design, which we think will probably be around this time next year.
I'm sorry, Louis, around what?
Around this time next year, probably, top of my head, probably around May. It's going to be fine.
By May, you will have the design done?
60%, we hope to get around 60% design, and we'll be at the end of that phase one, at which point we'll be given an off-ramp if the further costs.
Be interesting to see how this develops. So a lot of the focus, you just get started in maintaining an owner's representative. So that's somebody with expertise in this particular field that will assist the staff in putting together all of the documents and identifying all the key elements that need to be put in that RFP for progressive design build.
Correct, and then after that, they'll provide technical expertise during the design phase and then construction.
And I see that in the documentation you provided, you have a rough draft of an RFP for an owner's builder.
The scope of work.
So what kind of an owner's builder type of agency, whatever, are you envisioning as your response?
So we've had some interest from various design consultancies that have done similar work to this in the past with other agencies, both on progressive design builds, but also on design builds for SCADA, DCS, control system replacements. There seems to be quite a few agencies, organizations across Southern California that are currently looking to update their DCS SCADA control system. And a lot of those agencies seem to require owners agents to help them with the technical aspects of the project. So we've had quite a lot of interest from design consultancies.
So more of the larger design firms. I'd be interested to see maybe focusing on a smaller organization that should be more focused, almost to the point where if you hired the right individual and made it more of a staff extension, which I think is the intent of an organization anyway, might be a really good approach. In the past, when we've issued RFPs, tend to have very limited participation and responses to our RFPs. What are we going to do to ensure that maybe we can throw it out there and get a larger coverage and maybe get more of a real specialist addressing or responding to the RFP?
Yeah, so I personally reached out to 18 different firms, sent emails to them, arranged meetings with quite a few of them, had calls to make them aware that the RFP will be coming out soon. As I said, there's been significant interest from quite a few consultancies. To your first point about the smaller firms, one bit of feedback I've had from some smaller agencies, smaller firms, is that the construction management task makes it difficult. And that's not something they typically do. But we believe that rolling construction management into the owner's agent would save costs. So that may be some of the benefits.
Well, that kind of leads to my next question. Why would you want an owner's agent when you want somebody really specialized to provide full construction management services? When there's plenty of time to bring that in, and depending on how it evolves, the process evolves, and what the design build agreement turns out to be, the extent of CM services may vary quite a bit. So why, I'm gonna ask, why not consider splitting that? And either you can have the owner's agent through an amendment to the agreement later on, if it proves that that owner's agent is really worthwhile and have the ability to morph into a CM role, or the owner's agent can assist and will be in a better position in assisting in bringing in a CM that would really be targeted to the role that they need to fill in managing the contract.
It is something we considered. The consideration was that in order to save costs, we're going to need the owner's agent for the entire project, to be available for the entire project, to retain that information and that knowledge throughout. The idea was that if we have a separate construction manager, there'll be a point during construction where they're performing the same role, both of them reviewing and responding to RFIs and submittals. And so we're almost paying twice for some services.
May I add,
We don't, okay, go ahead.
Director, we also, in putting out the RFP for the owner's agents, we do give up points for small business, local business. And hopefully that encourages not only the prime to be the small business, but also a sub potentially be a small business.
You just made the argument, John just making the argument for efficiency, and to bring in a sub is not necessarily an efficient concept. I mean, it seems like it would be better to split that out at CM and really target it. You have a much greater potential of people responding to it, and more specialized people that are just saying, you know, I have that special expertise, without bringing in the baggage of a 5,000 employee firm. So it'd be much more responsive to what the district needs are.
Two contracts, one for the CM and one for the
the
owner's
CM
agents.
Be issued at a later date, as you traditionally do at the time you're awarding construction. So when you're ready to, when that design build RFP is really ready to go, you put it out in the street and you understand what you're gonna get back at that time. Either you can go back to the owner's agent and work out something, or doing the CM work if that's appropriate. And if not, if we have a really good owner's agent, that owner's agent's advice would be very beneficial in finding that.
We'll look,
Be putting out a much wider net in terms of potential organizations or individuals that can respond.
absolutely, Director. We'll take a look at that.
Yeah, see pros and cons.
We'll see what's pros and cons, yeah.
Yes, sir.
We haven't looked at others who have perhaps done this so that we aren't the first.
We have, yeah.
And
Who has done it so that we won't be stumbling?
there are a lot of firms that have done this type of work, and it'd be unfair to name a few and not others. But for several months, we've been meeting with different engineering firms, integrators that have done this type of work. And we've not only, we scheduled tours of the plants. They wanted to kind of see plans and get more information. We have a few scheduled in the next week or two as well. So John mentioned that he reached out to many consultants. I've personally reached out to several others as well in trying to get it, but not sure if it would be fair. A lot of consulting firms have done this type of work and will be ready to benefit for it.
And they know about what we're about to do. So we've been marketing You're out there marketing us. You got knocks on the door all the time, right?
I've had phone calls from people, consultants I haven't actually contacted yet, that were on my list to be contacted, saying they've already heard about it and wanted to talk. So,
They heard about Desi?
Don't answer that.
I get the feeling that this is the first job that we've done like this, right? So us as a team, we haven't done something like this. So it would be important that the person that we have in charge of program is very, very, very experienced and knows what to watch out for so that we don't get dinged by somebody, we stumble over.
You're absolutely right, Director. And that's our reasoning behind getting the owner's agent, is to have that experience come in and help us out throughout the process.
Because I'm gonna lean on you. Staff said, yeah, right?
Agreed.
Thank you.
I'd like to just see a chance of widen it so we have widest number of participants potentially submitting for the owner's agent. And this is, at the end of the day, it's one individual that's going to be critical.
Don't look at me.
Thank you very much.
All right, so thank you for that. We'll move on to, unless there's any other comments, to the next item, which is the bulk chemical storage tool condition assessment.
Yes, thank you very much. Yes, Mr. Chairman, this presentation will be provided by Camille Castillo, our engineer two.
Thank you, EJ. Good afternoon, Chairman Alvarez, members of the committee. Board is aware that we have had several chemical tank replacement projects over the recent years. A lot of these bulk chemical storage tanks have been in place since the facility, each of the facilities were built, so that's 20 to 30 years. And the tanks are reaching the end of their useful lives. To implement a more practical approach to the R&R program, we have included budget this fiscal year so we can prioritize the actual needs of each of the chemical storage tanks. So I am here today to show the committee that we have done our in-house work to determine and prioritize the potential repair or replacement of chemical storage tanks located across all of our facilities. The last piece of the puzzle is to conduct a condition assessment of these tanks by selecting a consultant to confirm the prioritization of any future R&R projects for these tanks. So please follow me along to packet page 34. And you will see that I will walk through the data that we have collected on these chemical bulk storage tanks, the preliminary prioritization that has been determined to perform an assessment, information we have gathered from other agencies in regards to their bulk chemical storage maintenance activities, and the next steps for this project. So on packet page 35. Before we could begin scheduling a condition assessment for the chemical storage tanks, we worked with our contract operator to update our asset management information for all the bulk chemical storage tanks located at each of our facilities. That includes ECL, Chevron Nitrification Treatment Plant, Torrance Refinery, and the Carson Regional Water Recycling Plant. And so this table shows the amount of data that we had to collect and verify, which included the tank manufacturer, the tank material, the liner material, and operating capacities. We had to assemble a significant amount of information for us to have a more holistic understanding of when these tanks should be replaced. And so this exercise allowed our staff to identify if a tank is no longer in use, decommissioned, removed, or will be removed via a separate existing CIP project. So on the next packet page 36, you'll see that the table above shows that there are 67 bulk chemical storage tanks located across all of our facilities. And based on the information we collected, I do want to note that there are 47 tanks that require an assessment to 4 tanks that the Carson plant will actually need an assessment instead of 6. And the table below shows just an idea of the varying sizes of each of these tanks throughout all of us. On the next slide, you'll see that another piece of information that we gathered was if any of the tanks would require some sort of bypass in order to perform an interior condition assessment. So this table shows that only 2 of the tanks would require some sort of shutdown and 16 would require a temporary tank bypass in order to perform that condition assessment. And the remaining tanks do not need any sort of bypass. Additionally, preliminary prioritization of the tanks are shown in this table. And the prioritization is based off visual exterior inspections conducted by our contract operator. Move along to the next page. And so on this page, as well as the next 3 pages, you'll see that these are a visual representation of the prioritization of the bulk chemical storage tanks at each of the facilities. And the highlighted green, yellow, and red just show whether a temporary bypass is needed or a shutdown is needed or perform those condition assessments. And so you can see here at ECL, there's 27 tanks that need to be assessed. On the next packet page, this is Carson, and I do want to note that the MFCIP will be removed as part of the ongoing CIP project. So there are really only 4 tanks that need to be assessed at Carson's plant. The following page shows you that at Torrance Refinery, there's 13 tanks that need to be assessed. And lastly, at Chevron Nitrification Treatment Plant, there are 3 tanks remaining that need to be assessed, with the other 2 tanks being currently replaced as part of a separate CIP project. So on packet page 42, you will see that we wanted to perform our own due diligence, and we reached out to other agencies to understand their bulk chemical storage maintenance programs. I do want to know not all of the chemicals stored at each of the facilities, nor all the tank materials used are on this table. This was simply the information that was provided when we talked to their personnel. The main takeaway from this information is that most agencies do not have the capability of performing an interior inspection. Unless there's specific experts on their staff, they usually hire 2 industry experts outside and to perform those inspections. We also found that the frequency of these inspections vary, as they are up to each agency's discretion. And on packet page 43, you see that as part of this project, staff plans to hire a consultant to help us perform these assessments and prepare a report that conveys the results and provides recommendations, including tank prioritization based on those findings. So ultimately, this report will help us basically to prioritize R&R of the tanks based on the given recommendations. And on packet page 44, you'll see that our next steps is to prepare a request for bid. And we will do that via a formal solicitation process. Once we onboard a consultant, we will coordinate with the contract operator to schedule the condition assessments based on ongoing projects and refinery contracts. And that concludes my presentation. So I'm willing to answer any questions you
All
can.
right, thank you. Director Williams,
No, thank you.
Director Deere, Director Gray. Okay. So what's the timing on this?
So we're hoping to go out for bid next month. And then once we are able to onboard consultants, we anticipate it to be around 6 months to perform all of the assessments, but that's something we have to discuss with them.
If you go back to the slide that has the summary of all the tanks. Yeah. So they're gonna evaluate all 49 tanks.
47. But yes, it's. So yes, so by each facility, ideally, they would go through it.
So the determination of high priority, medium priority, and low priority, what does that really mean? I mean, the first time I saw it, I thought, well, this is the highest priority in terms of needing an assessment need, because we already know it's in bad condition. Is
Correct,
that the case?
that is the case. Those are based off of visual inspections performed by the contract operator.
So if we've made that determination, why do we need why can't we do this? It seems like we have the ability to assess the condition of the tanks. Why can't we just finish doing that job with the individuals that are already making this preliminary assessment and have them do the additional?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the main thing to take away from these visual inspections is that the condition of a tank can look different than what's on the interior of the tank. So with an interior condition assessment, we get a better idea of whether the severity of these priorities are correct. So if something on the outside doesn't look that much, it's a low priority, it's deemed a low priority. I think the intent is with an interior inspection, we can go in and see that there's actually more deterioration occurring on the inside, whether that be cracks, whether that be material coming off, and that's what would change the priority level to a more using that knowledge as opposed to what we don't see from the outside.
And traditionally, I guess that we've never been really looking at the evolving condition of our tanks. In other words, our operators are not out there observing conditions. they're starting to see deterioration. That is not the case.
Right, so they can repair as much as they can. So I think they do go ahead and they see leaks and they repair what's repairable. But when it becomes a larger issue, that's when a leak or a failure may occur that they can no longer repair, and some sort of temporary tank is needed to keep production online.
Help me understand, if they can no longer repair it and become a larger issue, then you kind of need to just focus on permanent repairs. So why do we need another assessment?
So that's why we have not included any of the ongoing projects or future projects that we already are planning on replacing those tanks. So all the assessment includes, or those that were deemed to be assessed are the ones that have not been looked at, have not had any huge issues that would require a new CIP project for.
Let me add, Alvarez, I mean, one of the key drivers of this assessment is to just learning from the tanks that we had to replace and the lead time that's associated with these tanks coming in. The driver for all this is really to be proactive, and the inside inspection is common to do every once in a while. We haven't done one, and we feel like if we go about doing this without necessarily getting the information on the inside from the inside inspection from inside the tank, the prioritization that we have might be a little bit lacking. We have a prioritization, we can see it there. That's everything from the outside. But the whole intent is to see how much we actually need to spend, when potentially we may have to spend on a chemical tank, and try to spread any replacements out into the future as much as possible. And we want to have an informed and educated way to have a really good prioritization of all of that. Instead of saying, well, there's 4 high priority now based on outside inspection. Do we really need to do the 4? How does the inside look? Maybe we only need to do 2 or 1 or none. So that hence we feel that this inspection will help us get to that point.
Okay, one thing, can you all speak a little bit louder? And if I'm not projecting loud enough, let me know also. I'm having a really hard time hearing you guys.
Like to repeat?
No, I think I may have missed a word or two. I heard I don't need you to repeat, but, and I'll do the same. I will try to project a little bit more, but if you guys don't mind, please project, because it's really hard to hear on this side.
Absolutely.
I'm a little concerned that, we do have an awful lot of assets. Our assets are not necessarily new, they're getting old in the tooth, as the saying goes. And they're at the point where some need replacement, others may not. But it appears that the level of maintenance over the years hasn't been to the level that it should have been, and that we have a lot more issues coming up. Might otherwise be the case. And that at the end of the day, you're saying right now, we've looked at the tanks, or we've looked at whatever from the exterior, but we haven't seen the interior. In most places that I've worked with and been familiar with and been overseeing, my operations staff would be doing it. The operators would be very familiar with inside and outside conditions and come back and say, hey, this is what's happening, etc. It doesn't seem like that's happened here at all.
The inside portion hasn't.
Right, so that our operators have not delivered on that end. And so now we're at a situation where we looked at things on the outside, we're not comfortable necessarily with it, knowing everything, and we're gonna bring somebody else to look in the inside. And they're gonna need the operators to assist them in doing that. Then we're probably gonna need to empty out some tanks, etc., and make some modifications to operating process. I see somebody shaking their head, we won't be doing that, but somebody has to go see things inside.
We worked hand in hand with our contract operator to get to this point. They provided us with all the information that they have, their rounds, their visuals, their ASP information. They dug into their program. They've helped us get to this point. As we've talked to other agencies too, because we were wondering about that too. We started talking to other agencies, what do you do and what do you do? I think there's only one agency that said that their own operators do the inside inspections. Most everybody hired folks from the outside to come in, and almost everybody. I think Metropolitan was the only one that had operators that would come in and they would put the tank down and go in and do the inspections themselves. But you can see from the table that we have over there, almost everybody we talked to hired folks every once in a while to come in and do the. We're proposing, as is our contract operators also proposing, that we do an inside inspection.
There are contract operators we pay a lot of money to and should be doing a little more sophisticated work.
You can ask them to do it, but we're gonna pay a markup.
It seems to me that we're in a situation where, you know, we've relied on operators and the level of service that we're continuously getting from that operator is, in my opinion, not satisfactory. So, all right, so we're gonna hire a firm to come in and do more extensive evaluation. And do we expect to do testing too? Is that part of this?
Testing, no, it's just the inspection and then putting
So
together.
it's just a visual inspection, and if they need to do testing.
Yeah, if they are able to,
verify
correct, if they're able to.
something that they observed, how are we gonna handle that?
So if they observe anything, they'll put it down into their recommendation for the report, and that's what we utilize in order to create either a new project.
So before we're out ready to do any repairs, essentially have a two-step process. We're gonna bring in somebody to do physical observation. And then if that individual determines that, okay, this is what I observed, but I recommend doing some testing, then we're gonna have a second phase or an intermediate phase, where we're gonna do whatever materials testing needs to be done. And then based on that, we'll put together some kind of a request for proposal or bid document to do the actual repair. And
You know, you can get anything done that you want. Right? Now, when I was coming up, young engineer, thought everything you could do anything, you know, hey, let's go do this. It sounded like the thing we ought to do. And the contractor would say, oh, well, that's a good idea, but it's going to cost you. But it's going to cost you. And no one wanted to pay. We'll wait till it breaks. And over time, everything breaks. So that's where we are today. A lot of public works. Places like water agencies have stuff that is breaking.
That's a very good point. One of the things, the prioritization that you see here is we took into account whether there's redundancy in the tanks. So, you know, an approach of run to fail is not a bad one if we have a redundant secondary tank. In some cases, we do have redundancy, in others we don't. So I feel like if we want to maintain service and make sure that there's not too many interruptions, we can tackle it proactively.
It's a decision. And then right, general manager.
Yes, it is.
And so our recommendation here is just to proceed with the RFP, put it out, get some proposals in, come back to the committee and the board with an award for this inspection service.
Very good. That's it.
All right, if there's no other comments from Director Neer or Director Gray, then we'll move on to the monthly engineering.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. As always, we have an entire team here to present on the programs and projects that we're all working on. And I will hand it off to Veronica Gouveia, our engineer supervisor, who will kick this presentation off.
Thank you, EJ. Good afternoon, Chairman Alvarez, members of the committee. You can please join me on page 51. This is a construction schedule for the pipeline. And the major point of this is that we're in the process of assessing the time impact to the rain, which was much greater than when it was originally anticipated. As part of our bid package, we anticipated like 5 days of rain day. However, that amount has been exceeded. So we're in the process of assessing that with our daily reports and our notes for the field. Similarly, as you can see under the line item at the bottom, the contractor encroachment permit on the zero tolerance, the encroachment permit submittal from the contractor went in on July 31st, and the permit actually was released from the zero tolerance on September 28th. So we're assessing whether there's going to be some substantial, change to be added there. So again, we're reviewing information in order to assess that accordingly. Into the next page, please. So this is just an update as of March 5th, 2024. We are at 253 calendar days, which indicates, a notice to completion by March 22nd. And again, we are reviewing those time impacts in regards to rain and potential delays due to the encroachment permit being released. In regards to construction costs, we have invoices on this particular update up to December, which is approximately 1.4 million. We are keeping our request for information and submittals and all other requests for clarifications up to date. So we're always pretty close to be on, matching the numbers of submittals that are submitted and the ones that are closed. The next page, please. On this particular page, we are looking at the frontage road that is right behind PCH. So the contractor has been working on several segments of the pipeline. They have like 3 crews working. And these photos are for the street that is right along PCH. The next page, please. Again, these are other, this is the street that is like basically running parallel behind the they're in the process actually of completing all this entire trench. So they're in their way out, getting all those laterals out complete. Next page. Again, more photos on Janet Lane. There was a lot of work that was happening in that location. There is a school at the end of the Grove street. So we have to work around the school schedule, rain schedule, and see limitations on that. Next page. As part of the PLA, our team is currently working with contractor and unions as well as our consultants on making sure that we're meeting goals or achieving those goals. This is a cumulative result. The percent goals are indicated on the right-hand corner. As a tier 1 local 2%, aggressive 5%, and apprentices 16.67%. And as of January, or local is the one that has been a little bit more like on the low side. So we are right now also working with the contractor because they are asking, they haven't been able to get additional local workers. So they're asking to see whether there is an opportunity for them to offer to tier 2, which is still local. It's just like widening the zip codes for getting those local workers here. In regards to our risk, we're exceeding already the number by a small margin, but still, meeting those goals as well as apprentice. The next page. Again, these are just basically a totalization of the local residents by tier and division. Right. Next page. Pump station, so on this one, the notice to proceed was issued on February 6, 2024. And we had a pre-construction meeting in February 20. As part of the PLA, we went through a meeting process in which contractors, subcontractors, unions were present, and basically the work effort that is being produced is being announced, and unions are basically claiming or not, the particular craft that is being, announced during that time. So that meeting took place on February 8, 2024. And right now, based on the completion from the notice to proceed, which is 285 calendar days from the NTP, we're expecting to be complete on November 17, 2024. The next page is just, sorry.
Where was the meeting held?
The meeting was done virtually. Through Teams. Teams. We did it through, yeah.
Virtual.
Yeah, and basically, we noticed that it gives a lot of opportunity for a lot of those unions to be able to attend while they're also, traveling to another location. So it's been successful so far. Yeah, you're welcome. This is just a summary of the budget that you have seen in the past that has also, and that concludes this particular presentation. I pass it on to the next person.
That will be Orlando Rodriguez. Will give us an update on street ladder project. Orlando.
Good afternoon, sir.
Before you start, I have some questions on this one. So it might be good to just bring them up. Can we go back to page 52? So if I'm reading this correct, the pipeline construction should be done in basically another 17 days.
No, well, there is still a lot of work that needs to be happening. For example, the Montana Avenue, it's a road that is still closed. Well, conceptually, the notice of completion should be March 22nd, 2023. There is more than 3 weeks on rain that has been achieved. We have 5 days on rain days in our included in our bid package. So we need to assess those additional days. And also we need to assess whether there was a delay that was created also by the release of the permit from the city of Torrance. The permit from the contractor went in on July 21st, and it wasn't released by the city until September 28th. So we're assessing whether there was some kind of delay there by the city or what kind of impact that was. So those are two issues. Now, Montana Avenue right now is still currently closed. We meet weekly as part of the progress meetings in which the city of Torrance also attends. And right now, the city of Torrance is still waiting for the geotechnical report to be produced to them so they can really assess what is going to be the repair. Our understanding is that it's 6 months out, that full repair. So our objective here is trying to find out from the city of Torrance how that closure is going to impact us, and whether once they have those results, we can probably try to work something that we can get as close as we can without compromising that slope and be able to minimize any. So there's still some mechanics that probably will have a little bit of an impact on this.
Come back to this. So the contract completion date was 270 days after the notice to proceed. Calendar day. And we're have 253 calendar days already. So there's basically 17 days left to complete, but there's going to be a change order, some accommodating for delays due to weather and permit. What is your estimate of what that's going to be?
It's probably at least a couple of months what we're looking at.
So this job is going to extend for another 60 days?
Potentially, yes. There's another item that was also discussed, I think, previous or a couple, I don't know, times flying this year, but there's the directional drilling that we were expected to do right before it rained, and basically that also kind of like pushed our schedule. And as part of the requirements with the city of Palos Verdes Estates, you know, we couldn't do work around that area because like soil was too wet. So we have to kind of move or you know, or not just equipment, but also like the crews that were supposed to be working on that. So I had to be reshifted. So we need to see whether there was an impact on that one. Now on that, there's also a requirement by the city of Palos Verdes Estates that we need to give a 3-day advance notice to residents before we move in, then a 2-week advance notice, and then a 40-day advance notice. So that also needs, you know, every time that something like that is pushed, we need to make sure that we are working with the city to provide those notifications and be able to accommodate. So right now we're in that process of making sure that these entire, you know, addition, you know, not addition, but like the directional drilling is also assessed to determine whether there was any impact.
Okay, so maybe you can put together a little summary of all of these issues that are pending out there. It seems like this project is gonna get delayed quite a bit more. Which, if the project was as far along as I assumed it was from the presentation, it seems like billing on the total project cost should be substantially more, and we're at a minimum amount in terms of the billing, given the overall extent of the project. So where is the billing today? You guesstimate, is it really $1.5 million out of a $9 million contract?
Yeah, so the contractors, it started slow on their billing. I think that they were concentrated on getting the construction going, and because we had holiday moratorium in the city of Torrance, they were a little more focused on getting construction, you know, in place and getting out of the PCH, because again, we also had a Caltrans permit that we needed to install a pipeline and be out of there before the permit expires. So I feel like contractor was focused on like the hands-on to the project, and the invoices for their part, they got a little bit delayed. However, now they are catching up. So right now we have, after this was submitted, you know, this report was submitted, we got an additional, like the following invoices that were in the process of basically processing. So I think like by the end of this fiscal year, they're gonna be able to be on the, you know, on the on the correct amount that they need to be at.
Okay, so I look at this, the project's about 95% complete based on these dates that you presented here. And yet billing is about 15%.
Yes. Yes.
I saw that and I said, what's going on?
No, I was excited actually to finally show another different number that was like 0 on the past previous monthly reports. I think like that number has been 0. So finally it's like we're seeing the money, you know, being released.
Okay, and then on Montana Avenue, I guess that's the one that you have the slide on.
Mhm.
So why do we need to wait for the city of Torrance? Are we gonna change the design? Are we gonna redesign it? Or why can't we just ask the city of Torrance to allow us to build in there unless we're expecting to have to redesign or reroute?
Yeah, they have closed the road to all public, including ourselves. So that's one of the problems, that they don't know how stable or unstable the slope is. And they're probably, you know, still kind of getting that information in order for them to say, okay, whether it's safe for someone to walk in or not, or like drive through. So we're hoping that once they get this report, we can meet and discuss parameters, or maybe be able to do the work while this slope gets repaired. Again, we're working with them, we meet weekly with them, and weekly we keep asking those questions, and hopefully we can get a resolution so we don't get you know, an impact because of that closure.
So are we looking at a situation where you're gonna finish the pipeline everywhere but one gap?
Will be, I don't know yet. So that's what we're trying to, one, try to, if that is the case, try to get as close as we can. Two, maybe work with the city and have them allow us to come in. But I think like the city needs to have some kind of like, knowledge on understanding what is the happen on that slope. Because there was other, like, because it was raining, they couldn't really point out like how it happened. So they're basically, trying to make that assessment.
Maybe you should come back and give us a little more information on that. I'd be interested in learning more about that too.
Yes.
Sure, you're absolutely right. I think this is the biggest curveball on this particular project. So we are potentially looking at having to demob and then mow back for that. Once the repairs are done, that's one. Looking at a different alignment is going to cost a lot because it's way longer stretch of pipeline. So that we're not even considering that as a real option at this point. So key here is to wait until the city gets enough information for them to assess when they can open that road back up for not only just us, but the public as well.
So given all the delays that are pending and that you're gonna give the contractor, et cetera. And the numbers we're looking at in terms of billing percentage of the total job is not realistic. What potential additional costs are we gonna have claims for? Or is there any,
So right now for the pipeline, I feel okay, because we have contingency built into that. And there are some items that, again, hopefully, we don't need to utilize. So those will also be probably the items that will come back, to.
but contingency still means that you're gonna issue a change order for not just time, you're gonna issue a change order for costs. And you only need to come back. It'd be interesting to see what that is. And then the issue that I brought up, that you addressed about the segment of the pipe that's in Montana. If that gets delayed and everything else gets done and we come in from two directions, there's a mode demo. And those, where are we in those discussions? Maybe you can't address that right now, but would you please bring that back? Because it seems that there's a lot more happening on this project and a lot more delays, and at least I was aware of from the past discussions that we had, and the potential for some significant costs if there's a whole mode, demode, or realignment.
No, and we are aware of those potential, impacts on that, and we are assessing. But yeah, we're trying to get that full information also from the CO2, so we don't, provide misguided information.
Sure, we'll put together a summary, like you asked, of potential.
Yeah, you see, that's the whole purpose of the monthly reports, is to bring this stuff to the forefront.
Absolutely.
So you're aware of it.
You got it.
Okay,
Any other questions on?
no, go.
Len?
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman Alvarez and members of the committee. This is a Nash Street lateral project. I'm sure we're aware of it now. It's a new 6-inch lateral being fully funded by the developer in this area for the Nash Street extension project by the city of El Segundo. And on the right there is just a rendering of the new Chargers facility. Next slide, please. And just the current progress right now. We did request the tie-in at El Segundo Boulevard at the 42-inch main. That is now complete. Complete being that they made the connection, installed the gate valve at that location, backfilled, and done a pavement restoration. So that's set. Furthermore, we have done a hydrostatic pressure testing along the main lateral. That's complete as well. So that's one of our requirements. Then the final connection at El Segundo Boulevard. So being that where the gate valve is to the main lateral coming in, kind of like just past that bend there, we connected that. So now we're happy to say that that system is looped. But it is offline, pending some further inspections from not only our staff, but also by DPA's Department of Public Health before we turn that on. So it is fully connected, but not online just yet. Next slide, please.
But if I go out there, the trench is full, and the paving is done.
Yes, for our lateral. I know that they're doing other utilities there, so you might see construction going on, but for our work, that is complete, yeah. And that area is particularly interesting because if you've driven out there, it's concrete. Once you get out of that intersection is asphalt and it looks like patchwork. So, but they fully restored that concrete section that they opened up. So that is done. And then here are just some pictures of the current progress there. To the left, you'll see the hydrostatic pressure testing connection. And then in the middle, just a pressure gauge at 200 PSI as we were testing that for leaks. And then to the very right, there is that coupling connection. So on the left side will be the piece coming in from El Segundo Boulevard off of the gate valve. And then to the right is our main 6-inch lateral, just completing that connection. Next slide, please. And then just next steps for this is to continue the installation of service laterals for all the parcels that will be serviced. And then inspection, like I mentioned, by Department of Public Health and West Basin staff. Once that inspection is complete and our approval is given, they will install the service meters and meter boxes. And those also have to be approved by the city of El Segundo themselves, by the water department. So all in all, I would say that we're approximately like 90% complete, about 1 or 2 months left of work. And this is key because one of the key points by the developer is that this all has to be turned over to the chargers by July 1st. So we're well ahead of that. That was the deadline that they're trying to hit because they not only have to have this installed, but all the other utilities and basically open up the road to the public so that people could get in and out of not only all the other developments there, but primarily the chargers facility. They want that by July 1st. So, and to the right there, it just shows the main with the tape above. And then once, we went out there, looked at that, we approved it, and then they basically backfill and restore the pavement. That's at El Segundo Boulevard right there. And that's it. That concludes my presentation. If you guys have any questions.
Thank you.
Next,
Up is Kevin Cullen for an update on the phase 2 expansion project.
Good afternoon, directors. I'll be highlighting some of the progress in the recent one on the JMM Phase 2 expansion project. These two slides are slides from last month, but nonetheless, I wanted to highlight what the completed system looked like. So on the left-hand side, you're seeing the skid number 1 of the 6 skids completed, installed, and functional with all the membranes installed. On the right-hand side, you're seeing the other half of the system, which is the backwash system and the neutralization system for the CFB process. Next slide, please. Some of the more recent activities, as John mentioned, we did have one DCS failure that was out at the JMM site. This was a failure of the ovation controllers. I did want to highlight this because it was a pretty impressive staff effort, I think, on our end to locate some of those hard to find parts across the country. We were able to find them, procure them, get them installed, and work with Emerson to get it online as quick as possible. And we did all of that in a matter of 2 weeks. So that was a great team effort. During that time, we did impede the progress of the contractor's ability to upload their tags to the DCS system. However, as of the 8th, they were back available, ready to go. The ball's back in their court. The middle picture there is just an image of the HMI screen showing what some of the controls look like. That's the HMI screen at the local PLC, which is PLC 99B. And then on the right-hand side is one of the flow meters coming off the CMF skid. I just wanted to highlight this because we have been Sending flows to the refinery, we're seeing about 850 GPM out of each skid. And at any time, the most flow we've been pushing out of the system is just north of 4,000 GPM. Great to see. Next slide, please. This slide speaks to the construction status. Before I touch on this slide, I just also want to highlight, we had 2 presentations in the past couple weeks at pretty big conferences. Last week was the Water Use Symposium in Denver. We did a poster presentation joint with our design engineer. I thought the presentation was well received, and there was a lot of interest from the conference attendees. The week prior, we had a presentation that was done by Hazen and Sawyer, more technical presentation on the membranes themselves and the improved membrane technology. From what I heard, that presentation was also well received and had over 100 attendees listening in. So that was the Membrane Technology Conference in Palm Beach.
Question. How many people from our staff?
Orlando and I, we both attended the Water Use Symposium.
You should say that. Thank you.
As far as construction status, we are a bit behind schedule, I guess more than a bit, but nonetheless, we're continuing to push forward as urgently as possible. To date, about 989 days elapsed. That's about 137% of the original schedule. In terms of costs, the contractors earned about 94% of their contracted value. And in terms of RFIs and submittals, we're all caught up. Next slide, please. In terms of the PLA and the workforce coming from the local service area, the numbers remain in good standing. Now that we're far along in the commissioning phase, there's not too many craft work on site, so I don't foresee these numbers changing much. We're at approved local percentage about 33%, at-risk workers 6.3%, and really solid apprenticeship turnout at 22%. Next slide, please. This slide just highlights the details of those PLA numbers. Most of the work hours are coming out of Division 1. You can see there. Next slide, please. This is just a breakdown by craft. Most of the hours are from laborers. And again, most of the hours coming out of Division. Slide, please. This is just a overview of the commissioning status. Happy to announce that the system was officially commissioned locally and functional locally through the local PLC as of the end of February, February 29th to be exact. So since then, the contractor has been working on getting all of the tags uploaded to the DCS system so that we can have remote function and control. So they still have a bit of work left. The progress has been slow, but like I said, nonetheless, we're pushing forward. I'm hopeful that we can start that 30-day test mid to late April based on their latest updates with an ultimate completion date by the end of May. That remains the target.
Kevin, I think you said everything is up and running, and we went through all the testing. So why the delay in the acceptance test? Why not just proceed with that immediately?
They have a few loose ends that we're looking at cleaned up before the acceptance test. Specifically, we need to perform full top to bottom loop checks through the DCS system. We want to ensure that we do have remote control, and that's a critical piece of the functional test, right? The JMM plan is not staffed 24/7. There's only operators out there Monday through Friday during business hours. So ensuring that the system can be controlled through the DCS during those off hours is really critical. Additionally, there's a few loose ends that they're still tying up on the CMS themselves. There's a couple of leaks on 2 of the manifolds. So they have a replacement header showing up the end of this month. They're going to autopsy the header they take out and then use that to perform the repair of the second one. So we're not looking to let them start that test until the system is absolutely full.
There's still pending issues in terms of getting everything ready for fully making the system operational.
Correct. Yeah, like I said, there's the loop checks. There's a couple loose ends like those leaks, and there's a few administrative requirements that we're really holding their feet to the fire. Simple things such as labeling all the conduits across the site. This is something we've been chasing them up on for months. They are making progress, but it's a little bit slower than I would like. So those are things that we're looking to prevent them starting for the test until they complete all those administrative requirements. Next.
Kevin. Next up, is, John for an update on the solids handling improvement project.
Good afternoon again. So yeah, back at page 73 for this brief update on the solids handling project. This is our design phase schedule that presented a few times before. We held the kickoff meeting for the design team on August 30th last year and held condition assessment efforts throughout September, presented the results of the condition assessment in the November committee meeting. And then the next step was to produce the preliminary design report, that 30% design that informs a lot of the rest of the project. The first draft of that report was presented to this committee in January. The second and final draft of the report is attached to this update. And then our design consultant is currently progressing with the full design now. But the next step for the district is to pre-procure a number of components to ensure the project's not delayed. So staff is currently preparing the pre-procurement documentation and intends to bring the selections back to the board in May, alongside the approval for a construction manager to provide a constructability assessment of the 90% design, and then provide construction management services during construction. Next slide, please. So this slide shows the 6 sets of pre-procurement that the district will need to undertake prior to construction. So the first 2 items there relate to the temporary dewatering system that we're going to need to have in place for approximately 9 months during construction as we take the presses fully offline. The temporary dewatering system consists of 2 centrifuges. We're sizing it so that one of the centrifuges alone can handle our daily sludge production. And the intention is to have redundancy there. If that centrifuge fails, we have a backup centrifuge, but also we can bring the second centrifuge online if turbidity spikes from Hyperion. And we need to handle more sludge. Last time I presented this project, we proposed that the temporary dewatering would be acquired by and operated by the contractor. Since then, after internal discussions and meetings with our contract operators, we believe the most cost-effective method for the district is to rent the equipment and for our contract operators to operate it. This leaves the contractor to focus on the actual construction. This has reduced the overall project cost by approximately $6 million. But that does mean that we won't realize the $4 million in O&M savings because our contract operator are now operating on the contractor. But it also means that the contract operator can operate the temporary system overnight to reduce disruption to our neighbours. And it also means that we have that ability to increase production as and when necessary to reduce additional solids if they do come into our system. In addition to the temporary dewatering odor control, the district will need to pre-procure 2 steel sludge conditioning tanks that will replace the original 2 tanks from 1995. The installation of these is one of the first tasks in the construction phase of the project. So it is a critical path, and so we need to make sure we procure those before July to prevent any delays. Later this year, we intend to procure a number of custom items for the presses themselves, such as hydraulic systems and shifter chains. These items are custom manufactured to fit this press, so they must be sole sourced from the press distributor, Universal Filtration in the state of Georgia. The earlier items, temporary dewatering and steel tanks, will be competitively bid over the next couple of months. We intend to issue some IFQs for those next month. Next slide, please. So staff's next steps will be to post those IFQs for the temporary dewatering system, the odor control, and the 2 steel sludge conditioning tanks. We'll also prepare and post the construction management RFP to ensure that the CM is onboarded and able to provide a constructability assessment in the summer for the 90% design. In May, staff intends to return with the recommended awards for all 3 procurements and the CM contract. And the following month, we hope to present the 90% design to this committee if it's ready, and request an approval to post the RFP for construction. That ends the solids handling.
And at the end of the slide deck, there's a typical information about all the rest of the projects that are on our CIP schedule. But that pretty much concludes the update on the engineering report. Happy to entertain any questions.
Any question?
No, thank you, but I must make a comment. that for some reason, when you folks are giving these great reports, you're very good. You fade at the end when you're supposed to give us the.
Out easily.
Okay, so just to let you know, and I would imagine we're doing the same thing, because I know that Director Alvarez was saying something, then all of a sudden he was kind of faded at the end.
Yeah, remind me, like I said, just remind me if I'm creating when I'm projecting.
That's all, thank you, but you great work, you guys. They're leaving now.
Yeah, I don't know if you had any questions.
I don't have any questions. My only comment is on, the last item. I've raised a lot of concerns in the past. I still have those concerns. I'm concerned about how fast it's moving along versus where we are financing it and other background issues and that will determine an ultimate need for this or not. And there's a lot of money, that we're potentially prepared to spend and we don't necessarily have it.
Understood.
And so moving along at that pace, bringing back procurement, material in May, making a commitment to spend money, I'm very concerned. Okay, so we will go on to the monthly operation report.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Similar to our engineer report, we do have the monthly operations report. It does begin on packet page 119. And this again will be a team effort. We do have Uzi Daniel, the manager of operations, as well as Susanna Lee, our operations supervisor, here to kickstart this presentation. So you want to start this off with?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention
Yes.
the issue.
So I was gonna do that at the end, but
Oh, okay.
Mr. Chairman, it is not included in the monthly operations report, but we do have some activity that's been happening over the last couple of days, and I've asked staff to present that today, so we can get that on your radar. It is related to the Torrance Refinery in Torrance, and so we'll throw it over to Barca.
Thanks, CJ. And just a real quick update on this recent events regarding the backup potable water supply to our Torrance satellite plant. We have a backflow preventer and a backup potable water supply that feeds into the nitrified and the boiler feed systems that in turn supply two types of recycled water to the Torrance Refinery. We've been reporting on this for quite some time on backflow preventer and the status of it. Last week, the backflow preventer failed its annual inspection test, and the LA County Department of Public Health was notified. They basically at the time told us that temporary repairs on the current backflow are no longer a viable option. And that's what we've been doing for the last few years. So today we received a verbal confirmation from the county that we can't use it. We can't use the backflow preventer. So we've in turn notified the refinery that should recycled water system go down like it did last month due to a power issue. Should we have a similar type of event, there's not going to be backup potable water to supply them. So we put out the notifications in today to them today and confirming that we are looking at a couple of alternatives. There's a separate backflow preventer assembly that we're looking at potentially reviving. We're going to meet with the inspector tomorrow at the site to see if that is possible and doable. If not, that's not doable, then we would have to do a critical repair or expenditure to see if we can get a separate backflow preventer in for that. So we have some steps lined up for us to make sure that we can get this backup potable water supply source back in place as soon as possible.
Mr. Chairman, the only thing I would add to that is staff is currently working on correspondence to the Torrance Refinery. We're working with our legal counsel. This will be our effort to notify the refinery of the need for this project being critical and the expectation that they'll pay 100% of the costs associated with it. I would expect that due to the nature of the project that they would agree and we would move forward as soon as possible.
Thank you.
How much looking at?
Depends on the options.
Depends on the options. We had
That means it's gonna cost.
it is gonna cost us.
Okay. Fix it.
Go ahead, Susanna.
I'll hand it over to Uzi.
Sorry.
Oh, no, no problem. Thank you. Good afternoon. Just the upper level, I think you'll get a presentation today on a lot of these issues. Things move fast in operations, so I know we'd like to look back, and as you hear, things change every day. But we did have another bit of a water quality upset, so we conserved our barriers. We're tending to do now to conserve those membranes. And we're back up with some flow there, got our sampling done, had to work with the regulators as well to make sure we can get our samples in. So that was a good success from our team. Also, as Mark mentioned, last month, we did have quite a large team effort to make sure to get Torrance back online and also get installed some of the power monitors. We've been having these power blips there. So we worked with Edison, the refinery, and everyone to make sure we got some instruments installed to try to start looking for those patterns. Distribution was busy with folks that are still running into these air valves and working. One of them, unfortunately, was on the brine line, but I will give credit to a team that was out there, was able to make sure to block the storm drain, have that leak diverted, and therefore we didn't have to report anything to the storm drain or any kind of threats, and we got that repaired. Just yesterday, the Regional Water Quality Control Board and DDW came to the plant. I will say, and Jamie will probably cover this a little bit more, they were there from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. It was quite thorough at the plant. Always good to know the direction. You probably heard some of the direction the LA board is going on anti-deg and some of that stuff. They had people fly down for this inspection from Sacramento. Everything went really well. A few small follow-up items. Always got to give them something. But it did go well. And I think it allowed us to kind of see the tone and the direction of where we're going with recycled water and what some of the thoughts are on that. Also, finally, and I think we'll go into this a little bit, two things. The fire panel, we're still working with the fire department and having some good discussions so that we can get away from that proprietary system and have a general system that will be, we can go out to competitive bids every few years to have that monitored. And then also we've been working on quite a few, I think Frank will update you, a lot of issues with our purveyors and MWD, just to make sure, just like us, MWD is looking at a lot of infrastructure improvements. That means a lot of shutdowns, us having to work with purveyors to get emergency interconnections and things. So some of that might make its way even to the board or some decisions that have to be made. But otherwise, I will say, if you saw in play some of the teamwork between MWD, purveyors, water companies that, you know, DWP that may not have anything to do, but kind of that old ethos of water, people will come together when they need to make sure a community stays in there. So I think in the end, we'll have some good stories and some nice presentations on that. I'll turn it over to Susanna.
Okay, turn to the page. Good afternoon, Director. So as Uzi alluded to, the water quality continues to be an issue and a challenge for operations. Experience coming off from the storm events, they're cleaning up a lot of primaries that have been impacted as they had to bypass those storm influence
Screens.
screens.
Yeah.
So you can see that the influent water quality in February was
So the upset that you're talking about, this is because of inflows from
they couldn't handle all the flow, so they had to bypass the screen. And so whichever that allow a lot of sediments and dirt.
So, but it's an I problem.
We don't know exactly, but it could be inflow and infiltration associated.
Normal flow is 250 MPD, and you got more flow than they can handle in the streams. It's an I problem. Where's the water coming?
Most likely, it's just that we're not aware of any incident, any additional incident.
So what they, my period does then is they just bypass the screens completely.
One of them, they open up one of them.
And that was because during what we were told, the big sewage spill event was they didn't open them and then it started to cause a problem, flooded their whole facility, created the problem. So I think now they're opting to kind of bypass them.
So they're bypassing the screen, letting the flow go directly into the plant. And, but then they can't meet their treatment level.
You
So
saw
how are
the
they meeting their discharge requirement? Or do they give exceptions for, so I'm not intimately aware of all the details in their NPDS permit, but how are they meeting their discharge requirement?
Not sure if they meet, quote unquote, if you look at the Hyperion data, they did not meet their target. So I don't know what that means compliance wise. I don't know, Jamie or Lucy, if there's any repercussions from the compliance side on their end, we're not sure. But they did not meet their target.
And as wastewater, they're allowed those excursions more. We're considered an industrial discharger, so they can't shut down.
No, I get it. So I'm just wondering, yes, they're gonna be allowed a certain number of discharges, so how are they balancing all this? And I guess it's a question I'm asking.
How they're balancing, well, I don't know that they're allowed, but they don't have to shut down when it occurs. Maybe that's the right word. I don't know that they can do a time schedule order. But when there are these acute events, I've never seen a time schedule order that they proposed. I don't know if Jamie has, so.
I mean, as far as constituents that they're discharging,
They have an NPDS standard.
yes, they do.
They get to exceed certain standards from time to time. I get
Yes.
that. So what I'm trying to get a more definitive idea of is when you have a big storm events like we've had in the past, most recently here a couple weeks ago. And they had a lot of additional flow from I coming into the plant and they had to bypass
Yes.
the drain. They're just pushing it through the system and their system can't handle that flow treatment. So what are the implications to their permit? In other words, are they within the allowable standards or are they reporting or?
It depends on the constituent. For example, something like if they're, I have to look at specifically what their permit are measuring for, but most of the time it is in violation. It is noted by the region. It is a violation to their permit.
You take a specific look at it, Director Alvarez report back. We recently looked at some of, we prepared a comparison of what we get versus what is being discharged to the ocean. And we can come back and show some of the highlights of that analysis. But, some of the things we saw in there that, almost 70% of the time, the TSS that comes to us is higher than the TSS that goes to the ocean. And on average, when it is higher, it's higher by 40%. Times it peaks to 4 times what is being discharged in the ocean. So we can come back with some of that data and show you historically and also look at if they are having the exceedances during these storm events.
Anyway, if you come back for that. Apologize for the interruption. We're running a little bit late and I know we always serve you guys to hear last, so please go on.
So we can go on to the next slide, which generally show a pattern that we have water quality excursions. So better solids, the average was 47. So we're targeting around 10 to 15. So as you can see, this is an average, and we saw as high as 70 and whatnot. In March, there was an excursion up to 350 ppm, which really pulled the average up to 70 right now as yesterday for the month of March. Next slide. This is just highlights of some of the maintenance activities. Reason why I put down the cartridge filter replacement, that is an impact to our operations because we have more solids coming in that is affecting our MF, and then that slow fall down to our operations. So cartridge filter, which normally maybe every 3 to 4 months replacement, we're up to like 2 to 3 weeks at time currently. That's due to partly because of the water quality, as well as phase 5 membranes that are not in the best conditions, which are waiting for replacement right now. So we're having more frequent cartridge filter replacement. And the next few photos is showing that you're cleaning up and inspecting graphite thickener, and then you're doing a lot of things, spending a lot of resources, hitting phase 5 MF membranes, waiting on replacement, and horns. As we spoke, there were a lot of work that went on during February to get the system back on.
On the membrane, on the phase 5, didn't we order a whole bunch of membranes like a year or 2 ago for that?
We haven't,
So they're already in it?
No,
we haven't installed them
we
yet.
have not installed them yet. We'll be,
So, it was like almost 2 years ago that we had to.
so that was phase 4 membranes. Phase 4 membranes have been replaced. This is the tall membranes that we
This is the
order.
membrane.
Next slide, please. We'll be reviewing the production for February. As you can see that in February, we produced below last year's target as well as our budget amount. There are 3 main drivers. Next slide will show you the detail. We had a lot of rain, so Title 22, we just produced 59 acre feet versus the 217 acre feet that we targeted. And then other 2 big factors, barrier was down for the most part of February because of the water quality, between water quality, and then there was some mechanical equipment barrier as well. And for Torrance, we spoken up we were offline since February 9th, and we were back online February 21st. So those are the big ones that we missed the target, which now we are 11% off our current fiscal year targets. The next slide is really comparison to our production fiscal year 23. As you can see, barrier is the one that really did not perform well compared to last fiscal year. Next 2 slides are just a recap of all the activities that took place to get the Torrance in service. As I mentioned, the flow chart on the right shows that we put in a temporary bypass, potable line to that directly put forward to our product tank. As Bart had mentioned, currently we cannot use that should we need it. Should there be a need because of the failure of the backflow preventer. Going back to all the activities last month, we had to do a lot of reprogramming of all the failed communication cards to the RO system, the PLC system. We had to wait for CCPs to arrive and replace a lot of the valves and all the actuators. And once we got all that reprogramming, We originally targeted to be back online on the 15th. However, the electrical and INC team decided to put in a UPS that would help to eliminate some of the power quality system that we saw to bring a little bit more reliability. So we pushed back another week before we brought the system back online. And we took extra couple of days just to make sure that our system was stable. So we were running on potable water for a few days, and then finally on the 21st, we were back on recycled water. On the same parallel path, the electrical task force that were tasked to look at the power quality issues that might have caused the original interruptions. They did number of work to look into the power quality and reliability issues. So we got SCE came in and looked at the distribution table from the refinery substations to our transformer. We looked at that and there was no issue identified. And we also service one of the and yeah, so after all of that, we got the system back online. The membranes is the next big concern because we were offline for a couple of weeks and without properly flushed. So we've been busy cleaning, doing a lot of our cleanings and trying to balance flows and demands with the length of time for cleaning. So right now for short-term mitigations, because we did see that we do need replacements, we're planning to replace all of the stage 3 membranes for ROs. And then we've got our 2 PCB out back. So now we have 4 RO trains and we can do proper cleaning. We will be coming back to the board to replace all of the RO membranes in the coming months. There are a few other items that the task force, the power task force are following up on. That's including servicing the switchboard as well as the other transformer. And as Lucy mentioned, we put in power quality monitoring devices on the transformer and the auto-feed system to try to identify the cause. All from me and pass it to Jamie.
Next slide, please. Compliance update for February, environmental compliance. February was the month that we have our 4th quarter of 2023 reports due for both brine permits, Title 22 and barrier, as well as our annual biosolids report. This was the month that the new brine permit for ECL officially went into effect. And as we mentioned, we had an inspection yesterday, not necessarily related to the brine permit, but overall at ECL, and it went very well. Next slide, please. Update for solids handling. Our 2 current waste haulers agreed to a 6-month no-cost increase time extension through the end of the year. And RFP for these services will be submitted at the end of the year. The reason for postponing this, because we may be including dewatering services as well as future hauling projects, so including future hauling within the new contract. Next slide, please. These couple of slides are going to talk about the anti-degradation analysis. A little bit of background. The regional board required an anti-degradation or anti-deg analysis for conditional approval for current and future irrigation projects, including Northrop Grumman, Inglewood Basketball and Entertainment Center, Palos Verdes Golf Club, and as well as our residential hill station at ECL. We submitted our anti-degradation analysis on December 8th, and we heard back from the regional board February 23rd. This is fairly new trend with, to have these studies done, especially with the popularity of recycled water and as well as DPR and things of that nature. In the past, staff worked with other West Coast Basin stakeholders to address this issue jointly. And in 2015 came up with the Salt and Nutrient Management Plan, SNMP, and anti-drag analysis, which we're planning on renewing and updating in 2025, as long as all the stakeholders agree. Next slide, please. So the regional board came back and said that they would like the following information: that we need to include Santa Monica subbasin of Los Angeles Coastal Plain Basin in our analysis, not just the West Coast Basin. That's because some of our service area extends within that subbasin. They wanted a summary of how irrigation projects impact groundwater quality and assimilative capacity determined by the Salt and Nutrient Management Plan of 2015. They wanted a discussion of the salt and nutrient management plans, projection for TDS and chloride. The current SNMP states that no assimilative capacity is available for these constituents. They would like us to address water quality objectives for sulfate and boron. They wanted us to address BMPs to reduce impact to the groundwater basin. Specifically controlled irrigation to minimize percorrelation beyond the plant root zone. They also said that future West Basin projects that extend beyond the SNMP timeline must be removed until anti-degradation policy is updated. And with that, I will pass it over to Lee. Or would you like me to?
Okay, real quick,
Yeah.
the anti-day policy,
Yes.
what are they gearing into? Are they still focusing on salt? Because all the stuff with irrigation is just built up of salt in the root zone. And in this basin, that salt will never get into the groundwater supply. So what's the concern?
Good question. Speaking with the regional board yesterday, their concern is mostly, I don't think they understand the extent of our projects as well as the amount of irrigation. You know, this isn't going directly into the basin. This is irrigation that's going to percolate down. So I don't think they understand where we're coming from with these projects. And I don't think they understand the significance of having recycled water that will cut down upon, that will replace, it will enhance conservation efforts.
Dr. Sorry.
No, please.
Chairman, the question you ask is a question that a lot of us here at West Basin and a lot of our stakeholders have asked. Same exact question. We're kind of trying to find the answer ourselves in our discussions with them. This is significant because initially it started off with a fill station, the recycled water fill station, but in the response, they listed all these other projects at West Basin as well, including the PU project. So now we are working not only with them, we're having discussions with our partners at WRD and others to see if we can tackle this in a holistic fashion and make sure that they have all the information that they need to assess this. Our thought is that we can't, best way to handle this is to have a unified voice with us and the stakeholders coming together to point out that exactly what you said, that we don't see the degradation here with the irrigation that we are proposing. And that's what we are working on right now. I know it doesn't answer your question. I'm not sure I have the answer.
We'll give you, well, we could say this, and it can be a little sensitive, but LA Board is the only one right now really going down that path. It may have some relation to some of the other larger water recycling projects and this some of the NGOs that are involved with it. We are trying to work with other regional boards and make some comparisons. And we did have some progress at the meeting yesterday they might be throttling back a little bit. They're open to having a meeting and us drafting a letter and maybe coming up with sort of a middle ground on this. So
So just a couple. I know you don't have an answer to your question, and really, unless I missed something, we're talking about liquidation on the salt management.
right, the
So-
salt nutrient management plan is required, and then there's an anti-deg attached to it, and they're only coming after the anti-deg.
So what's our TDS coming out when we, on our Title 42 one?
Well, we exceed drinking water.
I know, but what is it, 500, 750?
Yeah, it's yeah, it's like closer to, well, yeah, 7, right, 800. And, oh, go ahead, but the Colorado River water can be higher.
Well, so my point is, I can irrigate all day long with Colorado River water, and I'm serving water.
Agreed.
And I TDS from 700. Okay, so why can't we just go back and say, here's a simple mass balance, plus the amount of water that we're putting out there, 5 MGD is that much used for Title 22?
Totally agree.
It is an insignificant amount of, if you do a mass balance and salt alone. So who's in charge of this over at the regional board now?
So the new executive director, that seems to be driving this, that, also there's a lot of discussions. What we were told was, with the Pure Water and the Water Next, there might be a little confusion on the different, but, so we're, as Jamie said, we're kind of re-educating. At least there's an open dialogue now with staff to be able to do that, but there might be a little bit of that occurring right now. And this isn't unusual that would happen back in the day. I've said, so you have to get your stakeholders, we're getting reuse involved and just kind of come together as a group. Because taking on a new salt nutrient, we were involved in the 2015, we contributed, and that was $1 million project in 2015.
I know, and that was, even at the time, I wasn't here, but I knew about that project. It was like, why are they doing it? Okay,
It's required in the recycled water policy by the state.
so, and I want to ask you questions that they're saying they're gonna make us backtrack and stop some of our projects.
They haven't approved them yet, which is the same as stopping them, right?
I saw something, they may even go back to some of the projects we've already just recently approved.
The conditional approval, this was pending.
So this has more impact than just the.
Absolutely.
You're gonna have an academic exercise.
Absolutely.
And this is all because of the new director that's there, or?
Well-
Help me understand where it's coming from. That part got me befuddled.
Well, it's coming from staff. WRD has tried to tackle this as their groundwater experts. They were taken a little surprised by this. We reached out, some of us, to our other friends in other regions. They're not having this same impact. So again, you just have to go through discussions with people, and there is a new executive director. Of course, they're driven by their board and NGOs and business. So right now, the focus is back on salt nutrient management plan, assimilative capacity. And then how they're tackling that is by asking each project to do an anti-deg. I will tell you, Santa Monica right now, they're in the same boat as us. They were trying to tackle it project by project. It's becoming too cost prohibitive, but the larger scale is a challenge. So I think there's some momentum for all the water recyclers and reuse to kind of get together on just a really reasonable group fix. But right now it seems to be coming mostly from the LA board and likely from the director. But we're working on it. But it slows things down.
Spending a lot of effort.
Absolutely.
Time, and potentially money. Pretty, in my opinion, ridiculous.
You share your frustration.
But we had a little, there was some open-mindedness yesterday. So we'll take that.
Is that because somebody from the state came down, Sacramento?
So we had regional board and DDW in the room, and I think that benefited to have the two, absolutely. And that was sort of our strategy as well. We'll keep you updated.
Keep going. Sorry for.
Do you want to tackle the
Any
next?
questions?
Go ahead.
Next slide, please. As we discussed this before, ECL has a proprietary fire control and monitoring system with only one vendor to work on it. In July 2023, the vendor inspected the fire alarm system at ECL and flagged deficiencies. Therefore, El Segundo Fire Department issued West Basin a notice to comply. Veolia and West Basin called the vendor to return and repair the system. The vendor has declined to sign terms and conditions of both Veolia and West Basin's purchase requirements. West Basin's procurement and legal staff did not recommend agreeing to the vendor's terms. The fire department.
What are the vendor's requirements that pulling this whole thing up?
They're basically waiving themselves of every and all liability, responsibility, and our legal and, everyone's, they're just basically, they take no ownership or responsibility. And even put it back on us.
Did they say why?
No, it's standard, but they were purchased and we're experiencing even trying to reach the right person. So I think it's just, they've become such a.
Basically, it's gone through now a new owner, but fundamentally it's the same vendor as before. So what did they agree to before? What did we agree to before? Did we have them sign our indemnity documents and say?
Absolutely. Our standard
Now
terms.
they're saying,
Correct. And not only that, they then give us a rider. So even if we were to say, all right, you don't have to agree to these terms, they're giving us riders, our procurement. We've spent hundreds of hours on this. They're giving us riders that they want us to sign. Yeah.
we don't do anything for hundreds.
No, hours.
Hours.
Yeah, not dollars. Yeah, right. Hours on this. So we'll get you the thousands, the zeros on the end. We're actually tracking the time on this. But the thing is, they're also attaching riders in addition to not signing ours. And I say also Veolia because it used to be that maybe there's different conditions if it was a small, but now it's just become sort of another roadblock. And then in addition to when you only have the one proprietary vendor, we don't have the competition. So we have to wait when they want to come out. They can do an inspection and they get to call what needs to be fixed then. So we're going to do just like in this building, every 5 years or so, we go back out to bid, we get competitive bids. So that's our goal. We've been working with someone the fire department recommended. And hopefully we'll be able to bring you some good news and move on to replacing.
Yes, we've been working with the fire department. They gave us a referral of an expert to help us to go for compliance. The next steps include stamp and approval of drawings and biddings for replacement. The fire department, El Segundo Fire Department is aware and supportive of West Basin's plan to go. And with that, I will pass it on to Frank.
We plan on including this particular effort in
Speak up.
plan on including this particular effort in next year's CIP budget because it's not in this year's.
And over to Frank.
Thank you, Jamie. Good afternoon, directors. Next slide, please. This is our monthly potable water customer service update. As Lucy mentioned earlier, one of the projects I want to highlight is a project relating to WB8, which serves the city of Lomita. Metropolitan Water District identified a valve that served that WB8. They identified as very corroded. And so they wanted to get that replaced. They're implementing some other work, second lower feeder relining project. So they want to take advantage of the contractor being out there. And so they're requesting a 3-day shutdown between April 15th and 17th for that service connection. That
service provides the city of Lomita almost 80% their potable water supply. So as a result, the city is going to utilize a reservoir during the outage, and they're also going to obtain potable water from LADWP as an emergency supply. And so there's been ongoing meetings with Metropolitan Water District, with the city of Forest, and DWP. DWP recently requested a agreement between all the agencies so that they could ensure they receive credit for the water they're going to supply the city of Lomita. And so we're currently in discussions with agencies to try to determine how we can figure that out.
I understand, 3-day shutdown and Lomita has limited storage capacity in 3 days. Do they have an intertie with LA? Is that what is going to feed them?
Well, they have one, but they haven't utilized it.
Since time immemorial.
Right, so
So is that intertie metered?
No.
And how much time is there between now and when Metropolitan wants to do the valve replacement and shut and have a 3-day shutdown?
April 15th.
They want to do it that fast?
Yes.
'Cause you might want to go back to Met and say, you know, given that you're gonna shut this down for 3 days, you have a small system operator, they're not in a position to meet their supply needs for 3 days based on local storage. They need to make some modifications to run intertime, and it doesn't take that long if they wanted to do it, and Lomita can do it, LA cannot. You go back to the intertie they have in the city of LA and install a meter in that intertie. And then LA can know how much water they serve.
I think the concern from the city is that that valve is never, like they've never operated that valve.
The intertie valve.
Yeah. They
So
don't.
maybe this might be a good time to do all of
to
that.
test it.
And the city of Lomita can do it in a relatively short period of time versus having LA Water and Power or having any other of the agencies involved here to do that. Just an idea that you might want to float with Lomita first. And it's not a bad, it's a good idea to have two-way meters at on the intertie connections. The old ones, though, people that have put in recent intertie, put in two-way meters. For that reason, that depending on who's giving water to who, they can then say, hey, you know, you took whatever volume of water, and usually there's an intertie agreement or modification to an old agreement that puts in the terms of payment. Anyway, it's something you might want to talk to Lomita about. And talk to Matt then and have Matt delay this if Lomita can act on it. This be to their advantage as well as for LA.
Yeah, and we had brought that up initially to Metropolitan Water District, and they were bringing up that that valve is very corroded, and so that's their.
It won't fail
their
their
position.
Okay. Keep going.
Move on to the next slide if you like. Or- These are potable water sales for February. The actual demand for February was 4,775 acre feet compared to a budget of 6,433. Next slide. Yeah, this is our recycled water distribution system activities update for last month. We didn't have any leaks in February. However, you can mention we did have a leak on a brine line in Carson earlier this month. Go to the next slide, please. This was the result of a contractor that hit a 1-inch air valve. It was on Bunny Road in Watson Center. And Infomark was able to respond. They were able to isolate the leak immediately. There was no water that brine water that had gone down. The storm drain was all contained. Also had the contractor put it onto their side of the up to their site instead of going out to the road. Next slide.
So this was not covered by a contractor,
Right.
private contractor, or
Yeah, and we will be charting the contractor for that as well. And so this is just a map of the location, which shows where our run line was hit. Again, as I mentioned, yeah, we will be charging the contractor for that repair work. We do ask Infomark to follow up with any contractors when they get to USAs and there's a conflict, but in this instance, our contractor had called this other contractor to notify them that we wanted to be there because we knew there was a conflict, but the contractor did not notify us. Which leads me to another item that I wanted to mention, related to some additional work other contractors implementing. This is actually LA County Public Works is working on a large stormwater capture project at Alondra Park. It's on Manhattan Beach Boulevard, just east of Prairie. And we have a 42-inch transmission pipeline on Manhattan Beach Boulevard. And the county is going to be constructing very close to our pipeline. They submitted some shoring plans. They let us know last week, but some of their shoring is going to be approximately 6 inches away from our pipeline. They're re-looking at their shoring plan to see if they can provide a little more distance, but we will have staff out there once they start excavating to ensure they are away from our pipeline. Next, Val. And so this is also an update for new connection that we're anticipating to our receptive water system. This is LA Southwest College. We've been working with them for many years to try to get them to be able to connect. But it's just been a process over many years of them making modifications to their on-site system. But we anticipate that they'll be able to connect hopefully by June this year. And that would be an additional 60 acre feet a year of additional receptive water service.
Assuming the regional board allows it. But the policy that they may not put this on hold. So tell Southwest College to show up at a regional board meeting and complain.
Working on it.
The approval for this one we had from a long time ago.
Yeah, this was approved by Department of Public Health. Okay. That concludes our report.
Okay.
Good report. Thank you.
That's it. Thank you all. All right, with that, go ahead.
Well, I wanted to remind you that you did have one issue that you wanted to bring up under item 8 on the agenda. We do not have any closed session items for today.
So on the director's comments, what I was gonna ask is next Wednesday, the 27th, is our regular board meeting. Normally it would have been on Monday, but Monday is Cesar Chavez Day, is when we celebrate it. Although Cesar Chavez Day is officially next Wednesday, isn't it?
I believe it's the following Sunday.
Or the following Sunday?
Or his real birthday.
Real perfect.
So we celebrated on Monday and we shifted the meeting till 1 PM on Wednesday. I will probably be running late and I was wondering if it's okay and it will require a board action. And the only time to do that would be on Friday at the special board meeting that will go conjunctively with the finance committee meeting to reschedule that meeting from 1 to 2 PM. If not, the meeting can start.
So we have
That's why you
Co-chair.
have a vice president.
right, and then a stand-in, third
Yeah.
person. And that is that him? Right, the member. So we can meet, we'll just wait for you.
That was it. Otherwise, was pretty long today and thank everybody for all your nice reports. We'll do your meeting. Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for the reports.
Hello?